We don't play all music, only good music. We're Damn Radio.
Hello, good evening, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio, and International Flavor is the name of the program. Glad to have you. Thanks for showing up tonight. If you feel like opining about something, you can send me an email to samuelt@internationalflavor.com. You can even phone in. You can also do live at damnradio.com. That also gets here, but I'm not very good at opening that up. I don't pay much attention to it, but mine I do is samuelt@internationalflavor.com. And if you feel like calling in, 573-746-8020. Love to have you. Could be rather entertaining. I have listened to so much crap over the last 24 hours, nonsensical, and it was hard for me to pick where I wanted to begin tonight. And I think I want to begin with a German story. Let's call it a German story. Why don't we say something like, because we went through this in America during the Trump run for president 2024. We went through this. And some of the same things. And by the way, Germany's not alone either, with people saying the same things. It's happened in many countries over there. France has had trouble with it. Britain has had trouble with it. It's going around everywhere, the alleged far right, and it's so similar. It's like a cookie cutter everywhere. And so there are people that try to copy the Trump success story, the conservative line, and things like that. But there's so much to go through today. But I wanted to start with this. I mean, is modern? I just want to ask a question. First of all, is modern tyranny much harder to spot today because it uses the language of democracy and not tyranny? I mean, that's just what it says. There's a lady named Eva Vlaardingerbroek. Vlaardingerbroek had to practice that for a little bit to make sure that I said it without completely butchering it. And my German, when I was a kid in high school, I learned, I did 2 years of German, and actually in Germany used to be able to ask for directions and order food and, have many conversations, but nothing dramatic, right? And but the saying Vlaardingerbroek 3 times fast will really tongue tie you. And she says that today's elites have turned Orwell's 1984 into a playbook, that they're using it as the playbook. I mean, think about this. This is one of her quotes that she said. And think of how American this sounds, of how much has been said very similar to this. Do you think about the cries of the mothers who cry at night because their children were raped or were murdered by immigrants that you let in? She's talking about the unelected Ursula von der Leyen, who is extremely powerful. This speech has gone viral, by the way, in German, and I've had to read it because it's not in, there might be an English copy out there somewhere. Somebody's translated but either way, I had it. It's basically, she's calling her the unelected queen. And the unelected, and she's not the first to do that, calling Ursula von der Leyen. The European Commission is just, she had her no confidence vote, and of course she she's going to be fine, has been fine. And the unelected queen, and it's a pretty viral slam of this woman. And she basically says the starts with democratic illusion versus authoritarian reality. And she compares modern Western governance to totalitarian regimes, but today's tyranny is more insidious because they sell it to you like, oh, geez, we're fighting for democracy. But democracy isn't democracy if it is dictated to you. And there's so many things. War with Russia is for peace, right? The war for Russia is to have peace. The freedom of speech means we censor disinformation, right? Democracy means banning any opposition. And it's going on all over Europe. It's gone on here in the United States. I can't figure out what's going on. We were supposed to be the strongest democracies. And I personally, I don't feel that way anymore. But von der Leyen is an autocrat. She's unelected, but she's one of the most powerful figures in Europe. Not elected. She is in charge of and is forcing upon others the Green Deal and its economic sabotage of everything they have going on in Europe as well. The migration, the forced migration to allow people from the global south to come in, the Middle East, from everywhere else to come in and force it upon other people. They're rearming Europe and prioritizing Ukraine over their own citizens in their own countries. They have secret deals like the Pfizer deal, $35 billion vaccine procurement, same things that we have. All of those things are quite similar to what we've gone through. So listening to her speech, about a month ago, I read to you one for the I wish I could remember his name. The British guy, same thing, that was running for an office as well. And he came out, sounded just like Trump. He was saying exactly the same things that's going on here. And this is Germany. The same thing is happening in France. They accusing the others of this. It's a moral indictment of their own systems in their own countries, just like what a lot of us are doing here. She accuses von der Leyen, I want to say it one more time, Vlaardingerbroek accuses von der Leyen of enabling rape and murder by migrants, pushing a communist farming agenda, supporting policies that cause economic misery around Europe, and living in an elitist detachment while others suffer. Everybody else is subject to a horror story of a life, but not these elitist folks. Now, she again gives her own take on the matter and says, her goal is to make Europe great again. This is her goal. Where'd she go? Where did she go? Vlaardingerbroek. Yes. And, she vows unrelenting advocacy for the forgotten Europeans who are sidelined for Ukrainians. The Ukrainians don't have to work. They get to come into Europe and not work. People from the brown countries, the global south people come in and they get to immediately get on the social programs. And there's a lot of people, pissed off about that there too, just like over here in America. She frames herself as a dissident voice and is talking about populism, nationalism, accountability to the people, stuff that doesn't exist. We talk about it here as well in America, but my thoughts on that. I don't really support that. I don't think we have much accountability here. And frankly, I don't believe that that the old Trumpster is going to bring us any. This 4 years is going to go extremely quickly, and then we'll go right back to business as usual. I hate to be the naysayer, and sorry, drinking my tea, getting a little dry. My throat has been just troubled the last day and a half, and I don't like it. But you know, the fact is that Ursula von der Leyen isn't accountable to anyone. Sometimes she has to kiss the rear end of Donald Trump, or at least pretend to. She has to do that. And that has been difficult for her to muster. Not so for Mark Rutte. Mark Rutte, there's a, you want to hear your Russian word for the day? The Russian word for the day is geopolitical. Geopolitical. And geopolitical is a person who licks the rear end of another. That's a geopolitical. A geopa being the rear end, and lis is the verb for liznut, which is to lick. So an ass licker, basically. And geopolitical, if you're interested. And so I don't know. Well, there's so much that you could put into this. It's sad but true. And I just wanted to point out that unfortunately there are other countries in Europe going through the same thing. There have been, we have the globalists. The globalists are still very much alive and well all over Europe. The von der Leyens of the world, the Kaja Kallases of the world, the Macrons, the Starmers, Merzes, these same old folks, the globalist types. We even have those who want to be in the globalist club and be dictated to by them, like Ukraine, like Zelensky. How can he be a globalist? That's nonsense. He needs, us. And we too have our globalist tendencies, and they are very much alive and well. And we are going to get into that and continue on in this bit of topic, because Lindsey Graham has his sanctions proposal, and unfortunately for us, Donald Trump is bought in. I heard JR's show today, and I heard JR say that Trump knows what he's doing. He's got this under control. He's got Putin under control. He's got both of these yahoos. He's going to outspend Russia. Like he didn't say it this way, but this is how I heard it, is he's going to outspend. He's going to put them back on their heels financially. Again, we can agree to disagree, and we often do, my good friend JR and I, but I believe the opposite is going to be true. What is happening is that they are pushing people, other governments, more quickly toward BRICS and away from the U.S. because of the way the U.S. is attacking problems like this. I saw a long, probably 45-minute video about Trump's setting deadlines and then withdrawing deadlines, Bessent's deadlines and then withdrawing deadlines. If I can find it, I might play a part of it for you. But it's the same old standard crap that we are dictating to the world how the world will play, and we're presuming victory, that we will win, that the rest of the world will just fall in line and say, bless you, we love the dollar, we want to get right back to the dollar. It's not going to happen that way, and time will tell if Sam is right or if Sam is wrong. I was wrong once before, so maybe I'm due for a second time to be wrong. We shall see. But I believe that all it's going to do is have the opposite effect. The if sanctions packages were so wonderful, Mr. Graham, how come the 17th sanctions package didn't work? Lindsey Graham and his crushing sanctions. In fact, I was going to share that article with you last night that we began with on that, and I wonder if I still have the Lindsey Graham's bone-crushing sanctions. You gotta watch out for him. He is so tough. Boy, we've changed his name, have we not? Isn't he Hawk? Oh, come on, Hawk. He has a new nickname. He is Hawk. And he is, tell you what, he is somebody that we should all look up to and try to be like. It's the nut job of I got to find this story for you. I promise it's here. And no, it's no. Maybe I hope they didn't pull it down. But he's poor Lindsay. He just can't take it. His bone crushing sanctions. And you know what's funny? He gets out there and he lectures everyone else. He's lecturing everyone else, and they're all falling in line for him. I'm in shock. I really am that he thinks this way, and that people are buying it. How can you look at this and not understand that they haven't worked so far, and they're not going to work? Where is this? Man, I'm not gonna. I had chosen not to do it, but part of me forgot. It's we're gonna open this one though, because that one I want to share a few. Well, it'll show up. When I'm not looking for it, there it will show up. Isn't that correct? So, Lindsey Graham, though, the long and the short of it is, I couldn't find the full legislative text because I wanted to upload his entire sanctions PDF, and I know I can find it, but I really didn't have time to get to it. I wanted to find the whole text and actually read it, or at least scan it, visually. And basically, his proposal includes labeling Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. That opens up some money in the U.S. Freezing Russian central bank assets globally. They've already done this. And what they want to do, he's a big hawk on this. He wants to transfer the money to Ukraine, some $300 billion. And then he wants to mandate these secondary sanctions on countries or entities that do business with sanctioned Russia, like China, India, Brazil, bigger, other BRICS countries, all of them. But all he's going to do is speed up the fact that the BRICS conference made one thing clear. They are very close to paying each other in raw mineral resources. They're paying themselves in their own currencies, and they're avoiding the dollar. And the push to sanction them for that particular behavior is only going to speed it up. And it's going to be like a snowball, and other countries will do the same. I've said that before. And it appears that the old Trumpster is falling in love with these sanctions provisions, unfortunately, for the world, in my opinion. There's nothing out there that says that Trump's in love with it, but Trump is right on board with it. I still think that he got his big bad bill by agreeing to the Graham Crackers sanctions proposals. And because Trump was wavering on Ukraine support, now who's getting $10 billion? Now, the U.S. isn't paying for it. You got to say that's okay. But if he's going to allow them to bomb deep inside of Russia, that is a big mistake. And you're looking for escalation. And I think you're pushing the wrong buttons. The wrong buttons. Is there any real government opposition left? I mean, seriously, if 85 members of the Senate and a pretty good percentage of the Congress are behind this, are backing this nonsense, all they want is they want a world war. Now, remember, there have been people that believe that a world war is necessary to do several things. Wipe out U.S. debt. Although you could arguably just do that as a one-time bankruptcy and reset and start it all over. The countries everywhere are unloading it, but a war, the U.S. could fix some of that stuff up. I wouldn't put it past our government elitist snobs and globalists to create themselves a war of this nature just to reset the finance clock. Because remember, they've been losing, they've been spending like madmen forever. With the economists, many warned that if Trump goes through, if Trump allows Graham to go through with taking Russian money or seizing more assets, it undermines what? The global trust in dollar-based reserves. Nobody's interested if they can just seize them from you. Nobody's interested. Others see sanctions as having limited long-term effect. 18 packages haven't done much. Russia still has a stronger economy than ours. That's unfortunate, but true. It's growing faster. They're seeing a little bit of slowdown too, as is most of the world at present. But Russia has managed to reroute trade, increase shadow oil export, stockpile currency reserves. They've been accumulating gold and silver and stockpiles of rare earths. The entire BRICS community is doing this. So nobody should be surprised. Many Adam Tooze, Joseph Stiglitz, and others have written about the weaponization of finance, which has always been a problem in the West, and how it's backfiring, and it's accelerating de-dollarization and pushing countries more and more towards the BRICS plus alternatives. So, tell you what, I'm less than encouraged by old Lindsey Graham, just like usual. What else? They want to take sovereign assets and sanction non-compliant governments and banks. Basically, he's the world's policeman, Lindsey Graham, all by himself. All by himself. He gets to run around and tell the world what to do. He doesn't even need Trump to do it. Now he's doing it himself. He's running. And hell, he's telling Trump what to do, which is nonsense. Now, Biden wasn't any better, in what he was doing. And, but the U.S. government supported G7 frameworks and trying to take the Russian assets rather than direct confiscation. So I don't know. If Lindsey Graham gets Trump talked into it, they're actually going further than Biden did in his lunacy. And I don't know. Economists, like I said before, are pretty much against this. His full bill. Here's Lindsey's full deal, right? Is Senate 1241 Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, introduced April 21 by Lindsey Graham, right? This bipartisan legislation empowers the president to impose sweeping sanctions if Russia, and only Russia, refuses peace negotiations. Russia has never refused peace negotiations. They have refused ceasefire without any peace. They have been wide open to it. It's a narrow line, but it's still a line. It's the people who are refusing peace are Zelensky and company and the West, because it's more important to blame it on Vladimir Putin and company, right? And if you can blame it on Vladimir Putin and company, Zelensky can remain king of Ukraine for, another 6 months. He a couple articles on that I reviewed for today. I got like 35 of them open up here that I'm trying to summarize for you. Or violates any peace agreement, like all the ones that the West violated, Minsk 1, Minsk 2, what do you call it? Budapest agreements, Budapest Accords long ago. Or initiates a new invasion of Ukraine. I wonder what that means. If they continue the current beating up on Ukraine, or they have to start all over. Or undermines or destabilizes the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government is destabilized already. Another guy stepped down today, Prime Minister stepped down. But old Lindsay says mandatory actions will be triggered once the president determines that Russia meets, the president all by himself meets any condition above the bill mandates, visa and property blocking sanctions. More? You already got all of those. Russian president and senior military commanders, they already all have them. This is nothing new. Foreign entities supplying military aid to Russia. So now they could sanction, I don't know, North Korea, I suppose. They could say that North Korea should be sanctioned as well. They're already sanctioned because of nuclear weapons. Tariffs, they say they can impose a 500 duty on all goods and services imported from Russia. There's nothing. They don't even allow the fertilizer, which was the largest product from before. And they thought they were going to open it all back up for that during Trump's first discussions with him a couple of months after he took office, to reopen the fertilizer from the ports in Sevastopol and down south on the Black Sea. But nope, that didn't happen. And so there's really no duty from Russia, because Russia is holding its own. But they also want to impose a $500 duty on imports from nations that purchase Russian oil, gas, uranium, or petroleum. Okay. And then again, freeze treasury properties of Russia. They've already done that. So most of these things they've already done, except the tariffs, right? And then restrict commerce further. They've already done that. The commerce is already restricted. 81 to 84 senators have endorsed this and are trying to get it to pass. And the companion House bill, House Resolution 2548, which is led by Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, and 83 co-sponsors. White House and Graham Amendment, which was passed, seized oligarch assets to fund Ukrainian reconstruction, dropping American taxpayer burdens. So they'll just steal money from Russians, and that's okay because we're going to use it to rebuild Ukraine, right? It's no wonder the rest of the world doesn't trust us, and people are not for this. India's come out against it, China's come out against it, and those are big deals. Brazil has been talking poorly about Trump for a little while, and vice versa. And You can say, well, who are those guys? We're important. We're America. We're the only ones that matter. We're Americans. We're the biggest, baddest badass on the block. We're all that matters. The rest of the world doesn't see it that way. Friends and neighbors, they just do not. So there you have it. We don't know. Why does this all matter, you say? They say it's a strategic leverage used to hit Russia and Russian enablers like Turkey, China, India, and penalize them with punitive tariffs. You might have a tiny bit of sway over Turkey. You ain't got crap over India, China. You really don't in this regard. Economic pressure point, they still say that Russia's war economy relies heavily on energy. And it's a partnership between Congress and the president. And, we should all just slobber all over, with happiness that Lindsey Graham is there to protect us, to protect the world from Russia. He's was one of the same guys that all the way back when Bidenomics was important, was the same guy that was saying the same things all the way back then. Nothing has changed. Nothing is different. So it's crazy stuff. So Trump, for his commentary on this, he said what? He has his Trump's ultimatum, right? Trump's on Monday, the 14th of July, and I know today is the 15th, but he says Russia has 50 days or they face very severe tariffs, okay? And although this statement has made waves in Washington and Europe, there was a lady, which one was she? I'll get to her article. A lot of Ukrainians have come and said, 50 days, shit, we'll be done in 50 days. How much more property, how much more land is Russia going to take in the next 50 days? Pokrovsk is almost done. The Russians are beating the snot out of them all up and down the lines. She says, it's the same lady who says that, we don't need weapons and armaments. What we need are more people. And they don't have them. They can't get them. There's some great articles that are reading. People go, hey man, just go look in any cemetery in Ukraine. Just go check it out. You want to know how many people are dead? It's not a small number, and it's not the 50,000 that Zelensky claims. Nowhere remotely close to that number. Trump's got it far better than that. Dmitry Suslov, the deputy director of the Center for Comprehensive European and International Studies, said that Trump's remarks are a major setback for any meaningful progress on Ukraine and will likely freeze U.S.-Russia normalization for the foreseeable future. Zelensky now has no incentive to engage in serious negotiations with Moscow because Trump is back to blaming it all on Putin, which is completely inaccurate, or consider the terms outlined in the Russian ceasefire memorandum. Nobody's even talking about it. But if Ukraine is ready to kill off, the rest of the generation of young men, well, I guess that's exactly what we're going to back them for doing. And it's foolish. Remember that movie History of the World, when the guy'd go walking around and go, oh, piss boy, we're pissing away everything, and we're pissing away our money on this nonsense because it's just going to continue. The attrition war is going to be lost. 10 billion isn't going to change anything. 10 billion, it'll drag it on a couple of more months than it ought to. But, the winter's coming again. The Ukrainians are saying we got to be done with this by the end of the year. They're not going to be. There's, of course, all over Europe, they're pushing for World War III. Meanwhile, the European Party of War has been seizing on Trump's statements to cover and its own promise to Ukraine in an endless stream of military aid, further escalating the conflict. The result? No truce, no talks, just more hostility. Kiev will walk away from the Istanbul peace process in the coming months unless the battlefield situation shifts dramatically in Ukraine's favor. It's not going to. As for U.S.-Russia relations, they were already at a standstill. Washington had put dialogue on hold, but now that will drag on indefinitely when Trump issues ultimatums, sets arbitrary deadlines, and threatens Russia's key trading partners with 100% tariffs. It's clear there is zero space for normalization or cooperation. Now, Trump lovers like to go, oh, no, that's just the art of the deal. He gets to throw out these messages. Now he's saying he's going to make a deal. So does that mean he's going to bend on the 50-day deal too? What's he going to do in 50 days? You have 50 days or I'm going to impose Lindsay's sanctions? That's it? You have 50 days or I'm going to let Ukraine use American weapons, which means America is bombing Russia. You do realize that because Ukraine can't use American weapons to bomb Russia. It has to be targeted by the United States military. So you're jumping into war. Understand that, please. That said, unlike the Biden administration, Trump's team appears committed to keeping diplomatic channels open, regardless of whether there's progress on Ukraine. But this isn't an opening for a settlement on Russia's terms. Trump's goal is to pressure Moscow into compromise, something that simply isn't going to happen. Listen, I'm not God's gift to the planet on knowing this stuff, but I'm not alone. Anybody who knows anything is you're not going to force Russia to do anything other than it's already said. Besides, they're winning. Ukraine's now winning. Trump's statements also signal that he has no intention of letting Congress dictate foreign policy. He's taking it on himself. He's claiming it's his. This is his war. As soon as he signs that to send over 10 billion more in weapons, even though it's coming from NATO, he sold himself with the help of the neocons into this. So he wants full control over tariffs, their size, their timing, their structure. That's why it's possible he'll tweak or delay his own deadlines. So here's another guy, Ivan Timofeyev, who's a program director for the Valdai Club. Trump is frustrated with Moscow's position on Ukraine. Russia refuses to freeze the conflicts on terms favorable to the U.S. and Kiev. And, Trump can't sign something that isn't favorable to himself. He can't. Anything they sign, Russia has him right over a barrel. You have to admit that you lost. And if they do that now, you have to admit that you lost, and nobody wants to admit that they lost. Nobody wanted to admit it was a third-party war forever. That Ukraine is fighting on behalf of NATO and the United States, but everybody knows that to be true. What's wrong with admitting it? And Ivan Timofeyev also says Lindsey Graham's sanctions bill is now much more likely to pass. While the president already has the power to impose these measures unilaterally, the bill would bring Congress into alignment and add yet another layer to the sprawling legal web of sanctions. Nonsense. Trump's 50-day deadline is an ultimatum. Moscow will ignore it, making the imposition of secondary tariffs a high probability. Perhaps even the default scenario. Russia's already said Russia isn't without leverage, and it's preparing for this path, the hardline approach. Commodity markets and well-established export channels work in Russia's favor because they have the resources. This might mark the end of back-channel diplomacy on Ukraine. Sanctions will be wrapped up. Arms deliveries to Kiev are likely to intensify. Russia will maintain military pressure. We're back to the same old standoff. The West is betting on the economic collapse of Russia, which isn't going to happen, and Moscow counts on Ukraine's military defeat and the West's internal turmoil. But after 3 years, it's clear neither side's assumptions are panning out. Sanctions haven't broken Russia's resolve, and the war effort is now on new long-term footing. So 10 years from now, we'll still be battling. What will be left? Lavrov? Russia going to keep on pushing, through. Remember that article I read you last week that said that they're already talking of moving the parliament and all the important people from Kiev into Lvov. Said for everybody to get ready. The optimism in Russian markets, which spiked, they went up like 3%. And with these sanctions, with them saying that sanctions on their own markets have spiked. How does that make you feel? I mean, doesn't it? People over there know something, or I don't know. Sanctions haven't been imposed yet, which some investors may have hoped for, but the risk landscape has only gotten worse. Timothy Bordachev, professor at the Higher School of Economics, says the same thing, basically. In theater or film, playing a scene means performing a role convincingly, he said, conveying emotions, building a character, advancing the plot, and Donald Trump does that rather well. He grasps the fundamental truth. Bold moves between nuclear superpowers are dangerous because they are impossible. They risk the irreversible, and Trump wants no part of that. On some level, he understands that the diplomatic chess match is going to drag on indefinitely and there are no clean resolutions. But the show must go on, and more importantly, the audience must be entertained. Are you not entertained? What was that from Gladiator? That's why Trump substitutes real strategy with theatrics. Here he goes again, theatrics, shifting arms deliveries to NATO, proposing a new financing scheme for Kiev, tossing around tariff threats against Russia and trading partners. It's about constantly filling the political space with action, or the illusion of it, to avoid the impression of paralysis or failure. If no progress is made on Ukraine in 50 days, he'll unveil a new plan that overwrites the old one. None of these announcements will be treated as final or irreversible, and in that, Trump is perfectly in tune with the nature of today's international politics. His behavior isn't deviation, it's a reflection of the system. That sounds accurate to me. Of the 4 that are here, that one, the 5 that are here, that one is the most likely, in my humble opinion. I could go through a few more of these of what do you call it? Eastern economists and politologues are saying, but I'm not going to spend too much time going over that. Hey, I wanted to point out that it's been storm central down here in not so sunny Florida. And I have had the power go out several times. So if I disappear, I'll try to get on as quickly as possible if I can restart. But I'm a little afeared of that might unfortunately take place. In important news, a guy named David Slater, 64 years old, a retired U.S. Air Force officer, shared classified Ukraine intel on a dating site. He pleaded guilty a few days ago. A retired armed officer, he admitted to leaking classified information about the Ukraine conflict to a woman he met on a foreign dating site. I already told you his name. He was a civilian employee for the Air Force at U.S. Strategic Command, U.S. Stratcom, when he is said to have conspired to transmit national defense information. The leaks occurred from February to April of 2022, during the early stages of the conflict. U.S. Stratcom is responsible for overseeing the country's nuclear command and control systems. He held a top-secret clearance and worked in classified space at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. He attended briefings that included intelligence classified up to top secret. Prosecutors said he shared information from those briefings with a person who claimed to be a Ukrainian woman. The two communicated using a messaging feature on an unnamed foreign dating platform. According to court filings, the woman regularly prompted Slater to reveal sensitive details and referred to him with phrases such as, "my secret informant, love," and "my secret agent." In one message, she asked, "Dear, what is shown on the screens in the special room?" When I read that one, I was sitting there going, you wonder if she's sending him photos and that one's really innocuous. What is in our little secret room? Maybe we have a secret room and I'm showing you some photos over there. Have you paid yet? Basically. Prosecutors say the information he disclosed included military targets, Russian capabilities, and U.S. and NATO planning. The identity of the woman has not been made public, and it is unclear whether she was working for a foreign government. U.S. Attorney Leslie Woods said Slater failed in his duty. You think? Gee, that sounds reasonable. FBI agent Eugene Cole said the officer betrayed an oath to safeguard national intelligence. Yep, you think? Slater faces 10 years in prison, could serve a fraction of this under a plea agreement. His sentencing is set for October the 8th. The case follows a similar breach in 2023 involving Jack Teixeira, a member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, who admitted to posting highly classified documents on Discord, including battlefield maps and intelligence assessments about the Ukraine conflict. Well. Curious days indeed for Mr. David Slater. I guess that poor boy is going to be off to the old license plate factory. That is unfortunate for him. Let us go back to, I wanted to follow this. This came out like not that long ago, that Trump says he's neutral on the Ukraine conflict, but I don't know how that's possible. But that he wants to get the U.S. out of that mess. So why are you sending more U.S. weapons, more U.S. missiles? I don't know. He contradicts himself. It drives me batty. And so there's a few quotes in here that I wanted to get that what he said on Monday. Again, he said he was very, very unhappy with Russia and severe sanctions, 50 days, all of that. The side I am on, humanity's side. I want to stop the killing of thousands of people a week. I want to stop the killing. I want the killing to stop in the Ukraine-Russia war. That is the side I am on, the U.S. president said. I've solved a lot of wars in the last 3 months. I don't agree with that, by the way. You start a war, you can't very well stop and then say you've solved it. Iran, I mean. But I haven't gotten this one yet. This is Biden war. It is not a Trump war. I'm here to try to get us out of that mess. It is now his war. Sorry. Since taking office in January, Trump maintained that he wants the countries to make peace. But so far, that isn't happening. I want to get to some of Lavrov's comments and Putin's comments because I was very curious to hear what they had to say, and they both had had press conferences today. So I want to fill you in, and I listened to them. It was I took some good notes. I should be able to provide some information for you. Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov stated on Tuesday that the EU and NATO leaders have put Trump under improper pressure, agreed to adopt a hardline stance on the conflict. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov stated that any attempts to make demands, let alone issue ultimatums, are unacceptable. And Dmitry Peskov criticized Trump's threat, noting that such decisions made in Washington, in NATO countries, and in Brussels are perceived by the Ukrainian side not as a signal toward peace, but as a signal to continue the war. And that is the most important statement right there. Because the longer you back the Z-Man, the Green Goblin, the longer he's going to send men to die. You would say young men, but they're not young. Their average age is 47. Isn't that ridiculous? The average age of a Ukrainian soldier is 47. And the Ukrainians are not for this any longer either. Trump did tell, allegedly, Zelensky not to attack Moscow with any of the weapons he's sending over. Russia's taking some precautions on that end, which we'll get to in a second. I wanted to give you a brief. The transcript that I'm talking about, and when I went and listened to on the broadcast, did Putin just threaten the United States over Ukraine? It's possible. Putin has an emergency order, and allegedly there's some anti-Trump hysteria on the other side of the planet as well. The host, now this was more of a Ukrainian-based one, so it's going to be twisted toward that point of view, said that Putin issued a direct threat of strikes on the U.S. Now, I didn't hear any of that specifically. A clear shift. Trump, once praised in Russian media, is now Bidenized in the foreign press, in Russian press. Now, there's a guy named, I told you about my show that I watch on Sunday nights with Vladimir Solovyov, who they all say is a Kremlin propagandist, is said to have called for retaliation against Trump. And he says, I didn't hear this, and I did listen to his show on Sunday, that we must retaliate against America and American forces to the extent of nuclear war if necessary. But Trump's NATO deal is allegedly pissing the Kremlin off. $10 billion arms package, immediate delivery of Patriot missiles, ammo, and long-range weapons. That's the bad part, these long-range weapons. But the U.S. doesn't pay. Europe pays. And Trump's quote, I do like his quote. He is a man to coin a phrase. He says, well, if you want war, we will arm Ukraine and Europe can pay for it. I love it. Well, that you gotta like that. I mean, that's crazy. Allegedly, Moscow businesses and government offices are being told to move to remote work in cases, especially if the U.S. Does supply these, and they're bracing for Ukrainian drone attacks on command and control towers. There's constant discussions about the closing of airports in the regions because Kiev is still battling and sending drones in to destroy airfields. The elites, Russian oligarchish types, are, frightened. You know, he wants them to choose sides and quit looking to the West. If you want to go to the West, get out. Basically, is what Solovyov and a lot of other people in Russia are saying. Um, and so that was mainly from Solovyov that they were talking about that. But is Putin now targeting Trump, or is this just his own posturing? Is Russia finally accepting that Donald Trump is not, their friend? Maybe so. They should have accepted that a long time ago, I think. Although it would be nice to see this strangeness go away, and really, what changed? What really changed in Trump's stance? What really has changed? Why has he swapped sides? It's not because Trump won't. Putin won't come to the bargaining table. They've been saying that they will forever. It's because Putin is standing firm on the same thing that he's been saying since 2008, since 2014, since 2022. Istanbul plus. And but Trump, knows that Zelensky won't take to it, so he has to change what he's saying. But next month he'll go back to beating up on Zelensky again, because Zelensky will do something to piss him off, right? I don't know. Got some heavy rains going on here, but the masks are off now. Power, propaganda, and the quiet but deadly slide into World War III. Don't you believe? I believe. Next, let's talk about what Sergei Lavrov said. Now, I believe he was in North Korea at the time, but it might have been already into China. But he might have been in there. His response to Trump's latest Ukrainian ultimatums is far more calm and ideological. Things that he says, he's always a steady voice and says the same thing. He says, well, whatever comes up, we will cope with it. And Trump's ultimatums don't frighten us any. In fact, he dismissed the 50-day deadline as yet another in a series of Western scare tactics like 24 hours, 10-day warnings. He frames it as not genuine diplomacy, but pressure from the EU and NATO to force compliance with Zelensky's military agenda. He said, we really want to understand how the President of the United States is moving, because nobody does. He changes his mind every week. Like some people change underwear. He changes his mind on this topic. So I don't know. Maybe he has a lot of underwear. You never know. Hopefully it's only another pair or two, and he finally puts on a pair that he likes. Lavrov argues the West never really cared about ideology. They didn't care about Tsarism. They didn't care about communism. They didn't care about post-Soviet democracy. Instead, the West seeks only geopolitical suppression. That's a direct quote. Now, that is a powerful statement, too, if you don't realize it. So and one of the things you have to appreciate about foreign policy matters in China, in Russia, to some extent in India, basically in other parts of the world, not in the US, because we don't have a long-term foreign policy plan. It changes, again, like underwear. But he mentions this. He said, it has been the same. They're driven by one thing, the West: geopolitical restraint, suppression, or direct military destruction of those that disagree with them. And, the West has only been seeking for over 100 years, the geopolitical suppression of Russia, regardless of Russia's system. Doesn't matter. And that is the quote. He said, sanctions and trade, we will cope with them. If they sanction us, fine. They've sanctioned us before. Russia is managing very well, he said. Independent Western economists support that view. If you've been over there, you'll notice it. Are things fantastic anywhere in the world right now? Not really. But they're doing better than we are. Independent Western economists are saying the same things. He's downplaying Lavrov is the 100% tariff threat. Russian trade partners will honor their own agreements with Russia. Western economies are already hurting more from sanctions than Russia. He said it again. And another quote, healthy and objective European analysts recognize that the damage is primarily caused by the author of the sanctions war. And these are their own damages he's talking about. And he said there's a Russian proverb that he quoted. And basically it is, don't dig the grave of another because you end up digging one for yourself. And he implies the Western escalations will backfire and Europe will foot the bill for NATO's proxy war while Russia will endure just like it always does. Some people say, because I've read a couple of different commentaries on this, some people say that Lavrov is just buying time, but I don't see that to be true because there's no real discussion going on anyway. So to think that Russia is somehow going to capitulate in 50 days is idiocy. Truthfully, Russia is not going to capitulate in 50 days over the threat of sanctions. It will not happen. Either Trump will change what he's saying, because he always does, or something will change and he'll be mad at Zelensky by that time. Or force majeure, something beyond everybody's control could take place. But the further this escalation goes, the more frightened we all should be. Because, tell you what, rapid armament of Ukraine, I don't think that's going to help anything, except because, remember, Ukraine has nothing left. They whatever weapons you send them aren't going to help unless they're allowed to bomb deep inside of Russia with Western missiles deep inside of Russia. Okay. And that is an escalation that we really cannot afford. But that's all Ukraine has left because they do not have the manpower to mobilize enough people to field enough equipment, tanks, anything else. All they have is drones, but they are losing incrementally territory. The territory is going further and further to the west. And it's, creeping up into Dnepropetrovsk, into Sumy, into Kharkov. This is nonsense. I feel like I preach about this way too much, but the Russians aren't blinking. While Trump is promising missiles, the Russians are promising endurance. Russia has survived worse and won't fold into another countdown. 50 days, we better run. Psh, that isn't what they're thinking, not going that way. Let's see here. I had a little bit more to go. Lavrov was also talking about the North Koreans' military role in Ukraine. And he said that the DPRK troops were directly involved Democratic People's Republic of Korea troops were directly involved in the liberation of Kursk, and he expressed gratitude to them at the recent summit. And he responded to the proposal from Chairman Kim to allow them to come to Kursk, in other words, and we had no reason to refuse the expression of solidarity. Lavrov defends the North Korean nuclear program, says it's a rational decision in light of the U.S. intervention in Libya and Iran. He warns against U.S., Republic of Korea, Japan nuclear military drills and calls them destabilizing. They started a new ferry route, train route, and air routes between Russia and the DPRK. And cultural groups are going back and forth between the two countries. They expect to expand tourism into resorts like Wonsan and ongoing cooperation in language education. Interesting stuff. He did some questioning afterward where they let people speak afterward. But I'm trying to find that list of questions, and it's taken me back to it's all the questions are about Lindsey Graham, and and then I have some more questions about Vlaardingerbroek's viral speech. That was nice. And is a new axis rising was one of the questions. Is there a new axis rising? Russia, North Korea, and BRICS Plus with a vision. Is there bilateral military and cultural cooperation going to exchange into something more? Like Korea may attend the October 25 Minsk Eurasian Security Conference. They're normalizing relations with North Korea. I don't know how I feel about that myself, but the Eurasian Security Initiative is kind of the same thing where they're expanding partnership roles, just like the U.S. is doing in a contrary fashion. The U.S. is doing it in the opposite way. So I don't know. That's it. There's plenty of news on that front to talk about, and we have gone over virtually all of it. I wanted to. There was an opinion piece yesterday about, and I know I've covered this with you somewhat before, and it is full of maps and where the conflict is going. But I don't believe that in the U.S. people are focusing at all on this important part. Wow, I don't know if you heard that on the air, but that was a large thunder and lightning portion there. I hope it doesn't knock me off. If it does, I'll get back on as quickly as possible. But Russia is bleeding Ukraine's defenses slowly, deliberately, and everywhere. Behind the quiet gains and flanking maneuvers, a bigger shift is underway. Over the past month, Russia's summer campaign has maintained the methodical pace set in May and June, deliberate, grinding, and steadily effective. In total, Russian forces have seized 500 square kilometers of territory, 3 times more than during the same period last year. While the advances may appear modest on the map, they reflect a consistent application of pressure along multiple axes and a broader shift in battlefield momentum. And it's every day, people. It's every day. You can hear, another town, another small city, another tree line, and it's continual. active fighting is folded across 4 key sectors stretching from the northern borderlands near Sumy to the southern reaches of Zaporozhye. Each offers a distinct tactical picture, yet together they form a coherent narrative of Russia's evolving strategy. Sumy. Now, Sumy is across the border from Kursk, where the Ukrainians made their foolish attack into Russian homeland in Kursk, and near where Tyotkina is, near Belgorod. And so Kursk, Belgorod, Tyotkina is a little city inside of Kursk. But Russian forces are continuing to push through that axis the other direction. So they've come back through Kursk, and they're working to establish a buffer zone on the Ukrainian side of the border directly across from Sudzha, which is where the Ukrainians held the longest inside of Kursk. They're faced with the potential threat to the regional capital of Sumy. Ukrainian command was forced to redeploy units from other sectors into that area. But in late June, Ukrainian army launched a series of counterattacks aimed to squeeze the Russian bridgeheads from the flanks or potentially sever it altogether and push them back into Kursk. And so they're trying to maintain a presence in Tyotkina, the only settlement on Russian territory in the Kursk regions where Ukrainians still regularly hold positions. They keep running across the border, and then the Russians push them back, and vice versa. But it's a little tiny town called Tyotkina. As of early July, Ukraine's counteroffensive appeared to have ground to a halt. Russian troops succeeded in dislodging the Ukrainian troops from one of their 2 remaining footholds in Tyotkina, and coming weeks, the Russian advances into Ukrainian territory will continue, or if they will shift to expanding the border buffer zone. In another area called Kupiansk, this area, it's the same thing, and they have almost pushed all the way to the Oskol River in there, which I know, you don't know where that is, but they've almost gotten to the edge of Kupiansk and cutting that off. And what they're doing is they keep tightening the noose. Everywhere you go, they're tightening the noose all the way up and down the lines of combat contact. And one of the biggest one is Pokrovsk. And Pokrovsk is what they're calling the gateway to Dnepropetrovsk, which is the next region west. And, they steadily keep pushing them. Russian forces have advanced 8 kilometers toward Rodinskaya, bringing 2 of 3 main supply routes into Pokrovsk. Zaporizhia, the same. And that is, they've crossed. On July 11, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov visited the forward command post of the forces of the Dnieper Group and signaled a high-level attention in that area. In coming weeks, it'll become clear whether this means they're going to stretch the Ukrainian reserves and apply pressure into yet another region, Dnepropetrovsk. So I don't know. There's no one who knows anything about this or follows it at all that is saying that Ukraine is even holding its own, because they're not. And it's and the Russia really is bleeding the Ukrainians. If you want to get onto some of the what is it called, Telegram channels, and check it out, there are plenty of them out there, and plenty of them to look at that are, some of them are downright frightening, although YouTube has started to show a little bit more as well, where there are more to see. Let's see. I want to go back to, just because I think she's hilarious, Kaja Kallas. She's She's a ditz. Okay. So, I mean, you watch her and you're sitting there going, oh my gosh. It's like the old cheerleader routine, and I don't know how old she is. I mean, she's probably around 50, I'd say. But the EU is welcoming Trump's ultimatum, right? So we've talked about how Russia has said, well, good for you. It's not going to work. And but the EU is going, yeah, we can. Now we get to bomb them in Moscow. And the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, has welcomed President Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Russia's trade partners as a positive step. Trump said, blah, blah, blah. We know that. It's very positive that Trump is taking a strong stance on Russia. Kallas, known for her hawkish stance on Moscow, said at a press briefing. She suggested, however, that Trump's deadline may not be enough to pressure Russia. 50 days is a very long time. Yes, it is. Look, maybe she's not so dumb after all, right? It is clear that we all need to put more pressure on Russia so that they would also want peace. Maybe it's you need to start acting peaceful yourselves so that Russia will agree to peace. Maybe you should agree to peace. Maybe you should agree to Ukraine not being in NATO, which Russia's never going to go for anyway. And by the way, none of you are willing to go for. I mean, why don't you just flat out come out and say it and say, okay, let's regroup and quit killing people, and let's try this again in 20 years. Something. Well, there you have it. The Kremlin, of course, is taking Trump's ultimatum is quite serious. I don't know that they'd be taking Kaja Kallas as serious, though. I mean, who does? She's a I don't know. She's not very bright. Not the brightest crayon in the box, says I. And there's one more guy who says that guy named Fyodor Lukyanov says that there is a fatal flaw in Trump's strategy. Okay? And this guy, Fyodor Lukyanov, is the editor-in-chief of Russia and Global Affairs, the chairman of the Presidium of the Council on Foreign and Defense Policy, and research director at the Valdai International Discussion Club. Donald Trump's comments on Ukraine were highly anticipated, especially given his habit of surprising even those who consider themselves seasoned observers. His remarks on 14 July, delivered alongside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, were characteristically loud but ultimately underwhelming. That in itself should not be surprising. Over the past 6 months, now you're not going to like this. I mean, I happen to think nearly identical to this, but a lot of people aren't going to like this. Over the past 6 months, Trump's style on major international issues has followed a familiar pattern. Ukraine is no exception. At the heart of the approach lies a calculated strategy of noise. He generates maximum bluster to create the impression of strength and decisiveness. What follows is not action, but an endless repetition of simple slogans. Clarification is avoided, the aim being to appear both consistent and unpredictable. Behind this theater lies a reluctance to become truly entangled in any foreign conflict. So basically he's saying, well, if you're trying to avoid being entangled, good for you. But he has to keep putting up more goods and money. Well, maybe this time not money, but he did put up the 300 million allegedly. Trump wants short, manageable involvement with low cost and quick exit. Above all, he is not willing to challenge the mainstream consensus in Washington as deeply as he claims. For all of his bluster, Trump remains tethered to the very deep state that he rails against. Now, I say that, but I qualify it. I say that at least to the extent of being a globalist. He is married completely to the idea of Western hegemony, European and US, to the exclusion of everyone else. And in a worldview, that's a mistake. So that is globalist. It's very globalist, and it's very deep state, because the deep state is where that comes from. The Israel and Iran confrontation earlier this year offered a textbook example. One dramatic strike on Iranian nuclear sites gave the impression of a bold move. It satisfied different parts of Trump's base, pleased Israel, and sent a message to Tehran without triggering another regional war. I disagree with that. I think there's still a regional war going on. Trump got to claim a geopolitical win and was once again floated as a Nobel Peace Prize candidate by the wrong person, but whatever. Um, but for all the headlines, little actually changed. Iran's nuclear program continues, and the political dynamics of the region remain largely intact. But Trump presents it as a major American contribution to world peace. It isn't. The problem is Ukraine is not the Middle East. It is far more complex, and Trump appears to know it. His instinct is to avoid the problem altogether. But he can't. That's what I keep saying. The Lindsey Grahams of the world keep sucking him back in. The conflict is now a central issue in U.S.-European relations, and Trump's own supporters are split between isolationists and hawks. I'm not an isolationist. I just don't think we need to be involved in a war on the other side of the planet that we have nothing to do with. He knows he cannot ignore Ukraine outright. I think he knows he could, but he also knows he cannot allow Biden's war to become his own. I think he can, and he has. This explains the repeated emphasis in his "it's not my war" speech. He keeps saying it, and he said it at least 3 times. But this is me saying, not this political guy, but I think it is his war. So what did Trump actually propose? Not much. He suggested that America's European allies should send Ukraine their old weapon systems, especially Patriot batteries, and then buy new ones from the U.S., paying 100%. Truthfully, not a bad idea. That, for Trump, is the core of the plan: turn war into a business. It's always been business. The logic is simple and familiar. Europe gets rid of its aging stock, Ukraine gets support, and America gets orders, preferably for free. We don't have to pay. But the practicalities are vague. What systems, what timeline, what delivery mechanism? These are left unclear. Then there's the question of exerting economic pressure on Russia. Trump approved a plan to impose 100% tariffs on Russian exports to third countries. This is a more moderate version of Senator Lindsey Graham's 500%. The idea is to squeeze Russia economically without enforcing a full embargo. But here, too, the scheme is light on detail. The White House will issue duties and can cancel them at will. Implementation will be delayed by 50 days. Standard Trump trade deal tactics. Nothing is final. Everything is leverage. Everything is posturing. The real message that Trump is pushing out is that he is still negotiating. He can't reach a deal with Putin, but wants to pressure Moscow without entering into an open confrontation. He still refuses to personally attack Putin, only saying that he is dissatisfied and disappointed. That signals he is trying to keep his options open. He wants credit for any peace that might emerge, but he's unwilling to own the risks of a deeper engagement. Trump has repeated his claim of being the world's premier peacemaker, listing off a string of supposed triumphs: India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran, Serbia, Kosovo, Gaza, well, almost, the DRC and Rwanda, Armenia and Azerbaijan, and Egypt and a neighboring country, forgetting the name of Ethiopia. These boasts reflect the core Trump method: declare success, repeat it often, and rely on public attention span being short. Despite the showmanship, the risk of American entanglement in Ukraine remains very high. The measures Trump has announced will not shift the military political balance. They may prolong the war at an increased cost. Meanwhile, the channel of negotiation opened by Trump's call to Putin in February appears to be closing. This is the sad part, people. Trump is reportedly irritated with Moscow, but Russia has not moved an inch, nor does it plan to. Putin sees no reason to adapt his position simply to accommodate Trump's political timetable. There are rumors that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov delivered a new proposal to Marco Rubio in Malaysia, but based on past experience, these are almost certainly familiar Russian talking points in new packaging. Moscow's approach to resolving the Ukrainian crisis has been unchanged for over 3 years. Trump's rhetoric will not alter that. From the Kremlin's perspective, Washington no longer has the capacity to engage at the same level as it did in 2023 and 2024. The political will, financial resources, and strategic bandwidth are not there. Half measures from the U.S. won't deliver results, but they may prolong the conflict. That is unfortunate, but not sufficient cause for Moscow to adjust its course. Quite true. Trump, for his part, doesn't want to stay on the Ukraine file. He wants to move on, and fast. Many in the Pentagon share that view, but the war will not end just because Washington wants to focus elsewhere. Neither side has a clear long-term strategy. What remains is inertia, and inertia, for now, is stronger than intent. Now, I disagree with the inertia because Russia is steadily gaining, okay? And when winter comes up, they're going to gain even more. And they're bleeding the West. They're bleeding Ukraine in manpower, in weapons, in money, in everything. And Zelensky can't do this forever. His own people aren't going to put up with it forever. They're just not. Well, I had one more topic to go into, but I'm not going to. We're going to wrap it up. I want to tell you tomorrow night I'd like to bring you some talks on some funny topics. Let's see. But I won't tell you what they are. At any rate, I think that you should go and check out all of my prior programs at internationalflavor.com. I think that you should check out the schedule at damradio.com/schedule. Tomorrow, remember, is our big broadcast day on the schedule. We have Damn Schwag in the morning, the Gabby Hayes show, A Really Big Shoe, the Ike Skelton shoe, and then me again. Same time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Chicago time. And I will be looking forward to having you join me at that time. And Thursday, we have Really Big Shoe and International Flavor. And Friday, we have Nadine at 9, Really Big Shoe and Eye of the Beholder. And that will be exciting. I very much hope you join us in. So I would like you to go out and sign up for our Facebook page also, which is also at International Flavor on Facebook. And if you like to speak Russian, I am at Samuel Trapp on YouTube. I thank you very much for being here this evening, and I will see you tomorrow.